Alternative post-pandemic scenarios. Other viable options to consider. Following on from my last post on April the 29th, a tutorial on exploring options for an uncertain post-pandemic world, I'd like to explore with you some more scenarios identified as being viable. The presentation is much shorter than the original tutorial, but does illustrate the power of using such a method under conditions of uncertainty and complexity. If you haven't seen the tutorial or need a refresher, then you can access it on YouTube here. In this session, I'm going to return to the original model, or rather the solution space section. Remember that the solution space is where only viable solutions to a particular problem space array are presented. Our original problem space generated over 1.5 million possible configurations, which was subsequently reduced to under 3,500 options, which actually passed muster as being viable. They worked. I'm just going to call up the software and the solution set we generated. So if you just hold on a moment. Here we are. I'll be running through 3 different viable scenarios, and where each scenario will be presented as generating workable outcomes dependent on different input drivers or input conditions. In the first example, I'm going to iteratively constrain the model through 3 different sequences based on the following what-if narrative. What scenarios might need to be considered if there were a mix of an immediate impact of a COVID-19 mutation combined with an accelerated sign of climate change against an economic background which indicates a severe depression over the next 2 to 5 years? The first sequence includes 2 simultaneous drivers or conditions under the global risk variable, identified as these 2 red cells. COVID-19 mutates and climate change seem to speed up. Just these 2 conditions reduces the number of viable scenarios down from 3,448 up here to 672, shown individually down the left-hand column here. This number is still large, so let's constrain the model further by selecting another variable as a condition under the time horizon. Let's select 2 to 5 years. This decreases the total number of options down to 323. Finally, I'm going to add a 3rd condition as a driver within the economic main variable. So let's scroll across to where we have the economic variable. GDP falls up to 20%. This is a severe depression. We're now left with just 14 potential scenarios to explore. And we do this by clicking on each of the solutions in this left-hand column. This small number makes evaluating each of these scenarios much easier for the analyst and to prepare individual rationales or narratives for them. So this one here, that's a combination that works. And here's another one, and here's another one, and so on. Now on to a second scenario exploration exercise. Here, my main first driver is major social fragmentation. So let's go down here, I scroll across, and we select this one here. By selecting this particular option, this alone reduces the number of overall options to just 50 viable scenarios. My second driver is to set a greater than 5 years time condition. So let's scroll along here. We put the 5 years plus as another constraint on that one. This brings the selected solutions down to 25. Finally, a 3rd driver, climate change speeds up, indicates there are now, with this combination of inputs, just 3 possible options. And we can actually have a look at these. There's that one there. That one, as we scroll across, we can see what that profile looks like. And there can be a suitable narrative for that. There's that one, and then there's that one, all three. In our third what if narrative example, we ask, within the next 12 months, what outcomes do we need to consider if there is a second COVID-19 surge later in the year, under economic circumstances of a GDP fall of 10%? The time horizon here is under 1 year as our main driver. The model tells us that there are 210 solutions under the imposition of this one condition. We now select a second driver, COVID-19 second surge. This reduces the solution set to 76. And finally, by selecting the third driver, back to the economy, GDP falls by up to 10%, mild depression. You see, this gives 29 solutions. Now, among the 29 solutions generated by these driver inputs, there could be a short list of options that we would need to prioritize and address promptly. The process thus supports decision-making through risk mitigation, and we can explore any of these that work, these particular profiles. And if we wanted to refine it further, the model, then what we would do, we'd add more constraints. However, if I chose, for example, within an option that works, this one here, no change from pre-pandemic, we find that it tells us that with this particular condition, there are no solutions whatsoever. This is the power of the method. So this is an excellent way of asking what-if questions to complex issues. I hope this presentation has shown you the power of using this approach as a support to decision-making. It can expose a number of initial biases regularly present in multivariable complex problems. In the coming weeks, I'll be revisiting the model to compare what it originally indicated and what has actually happened in the real world. An audit as to the efficacy of the forecast, if you like. Could be interesting. Finally, as a postscript, if you found this decision support methodology and process of interest and could be useful for you and your organization, and you'd like to know more about accessing the software, then contact me at garvey@strategyforesight.org. Thank you for listening.